Welcome to Novelist Spotlight. This is Mike Consol, your host. Two quick things before introducing you to my guest. First, I encourage you to subscribe to this podcast by clicking on the follow button and also clicking on the bell icon so you're alerted to each new edition of the program. Second, in addition to being the producer of this podcast and interviewing novelists, I am a novelist myself. I've written 4 books, 3 novels, and 1 short story collection. In the episode notes, you will find a short link to my Amazon page and all 4 of those titles. Now, on with our program. In the spotlight is Nick Berg, an Iranian American author whose life and writing has been marked by cultural conflict and the search for purpose. Born in Tehran to an Iranian mother and an American father, he grew up amid Iran's rich cultural heritage and the intense political upheavals of the region that we see even to this day. Those formative experiences influenced Nick Berg's worldview in profound ways, and it inspired him to tell stories that resonate with both struggle and redemption. His novel, Shadows of Tehran, is based on a true story and reflects his journey through themes of identity, survival, and transformation. Nick Berg, welcome to the program.
Hi, Mike. Thank you very much for having me on your show.
Absolutely. You know, we scheduled this a long time ago. I was working way ahead, so finally we get to speak. Let me start by asking, is your novel, do you consider it or would it qualify as autofiction?
Yes,
In other words,
absolutely.
it would. Okay. Just for any listener that isn't familiar with the terminology, just autofiction is basically autobiographical fiction. So, the author is free to fill in blanks, fictionalize some stuff, but it's heavily pertains to the author's his or her life. In this case, his life. Nick, how did your mom and dad meet? You have an American father, Iranian mother. How did that meeting come about?
Yeah, so my dad was a naval intelligence officer in the Navy in the U.S. And back in the early 60s, his ship stopped in Iran, but coming back from Vietnam War. And he basically embarked in there and took a job with with the Iranian Air Force as an English teacher, or as we thought it was. He was an English teacher. And that's how he met my mom in Tehran. Probably after a month after he was in Tehran after his Navy experience.
Now, did he meet your mom teaching her English, or was it just more happenstance than that?
No, it was actually a ceremonial thing because my mom was part of a teachers organization. My whole family comes from a background of teachers and educators, and my mom was part of this teachers organization, and she was invited to the U.S. Embassy where my dad was there as well, and that's where they met each other in the U.S. Embassy in
I
Tehran.
see. I see. I'm just curious. Did your mom and dad have very different cultural backgrounds? Was it a harmonious marriage? Was it an argumentative marriage? Maybe because of all the upheaval in the region, maybe seeing things very differently, being from 2 different cultures. How would you characterize their marriage?
So, first of all, my dad left before all the upheaval started. He left in 1975. So, during the time that they were married, their marriage was like perfect. It was like a picture perfect marriage from everybody that I spoke to in my family, and even my mom would say it was one of the happiest time of her life, being married to my father. My father was a best way she described it that he was an enigma, and that he was a very strange person, but at the same time he really took care of her. And when he left in 1975, and we never heard from him again until 35 years later that I found him in Las Vegas in the US. And he actually contacted me. And the story in the book
Wow.
is a little crazy because what I realized at that time and before he passed away, I had recorded all of his story that he was actually working for the CIA the whole time. And he managed to direct a lot of my military career from the background, and I had no idea that he was involved in any of it.
Wow.
Wow. So he was actually a CIA officer. Okay. Now, when he left in 1975, he left your mom behind? You and your
Yes,
mom.
he did.
And
Yes.
was that did he just bolt on the two of you, or did he tell the both of you that he needed to go back to the United States, and then you never did he give you a reason, or did he just disappear?
So there's a story to that. It was when he was leaving Iran, actually, the Iranian Secret Service at the time, the Savak, had labeled him as a foreign intelligence spying on another country in Iran, which at the time we guessed it was. And we found this out after the documents were released after the revolution in Iran, and that he was a CIA operative working in Iran, spying on Russia, basically. And
Oh,
they gave him his exit papers, and he told us that he's coming to the United States to basically to find a place for us to live. And me, my mom, and my sister, we're all going to move there and live in America, which my mom at the time was very excited about the fact of coming to America and living in the States. But after about 5 or 6 months after he left, we never heard from him again. He kind of
wow.
disappeared at that point. And then in 76, my mom, my sister, and I, we came to the US, stayed here for about 9 months looking for him, hired a private detective to look for him. And at one point, the private detective looked at my mom and says, whoever he is, I suggest you just pack your bags and go home and never look for him again.
Now, is that because he knew who your dad was, or or was he suggesting that he just couldn't find him? And I don't think you're
No,
if
my
I go ahead.
no, the private detective actually got a call from the State Department telling him stop looking for this man.
Oh, okay. All right. So
Mhm.
he got the message there. And at that time, did your mom understand what was going on, or was it just, hey,
Not really, not
okay.
really, because my mom was a very naive person. Even though she was very educated, um, very worldly in certain ways, in other ways, she was very naive. And I get a good example of that, and this part is in the book. My dad would come home from his job, and he had an office upstairs in the house that we were living at the time, and the office was always dark, and nobody was allowed to go into that room. And my mom never questioned that. Why? What are you doing there until 2 or 3 o'clock
Mhm.
in the morning? He used to tell my mom that he's working on his lessons, but no teacher works on lessons every night in a dark room until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And my mom never understood that. And
Wow. So he would now I have to ask, did your do you think, or are you probably you did eventually meet up with your dad again? Did he say that he truly loved your mom, or was this all work
he
for the
did.
CIA? So he did love her. He didn't
He
just
did.
use her as cover.
Well, he did actually, because when later on when I met him, I asked him because I found that he had three other wives after that, and I have a whole bunch of half brothers and sisters in Egypt, in Lebanon, and in a couple other places in the world. And I asked him, I said, "Why did you do that? And what was the purpose of this?" He said, "Well, the breast cover is to have a family." And the thing about it is that my sister never understood that, and she's still bitter and angry about it. But the work his work was everything to him. His life was dedicated to his mission and to his country. Nothing else mattered. And it's just the type of person that he was.
Yeah, yeah. So when there was the Iranian hostage crisis that eventually happened, what year was that? 79 or
It
some
was in 1980. 1980.
1980. The folks who took over the American embassy and took those Americans hostage, I believe. Now you check me on this, Nick. That they said that they believed that there was CIA in there, and they were trying to keep them from overthrowing the next government, which would
Right.
be Ayatollah
Mhm.
Khomeini, who eventually came to power after they chased the Shah of Iran out. So, so it was a person like your dad that they were trying to make sure wasn't going to turn around and start launching operations and overthrow the will of the people.
Right. That was the concept because I don't know if you know the Iranian history, but in 1953 there was a prime minister elected, democratically elected prime minister named Mohammad Mossadegh, and Mossadegh was in power in 1953, and he nationalized the Iranian oil, basically stopped the British from taking the oil for free. And during that time, the CIA and the British conspired and overthrew Mossadegh's government and brought the Shah back and put him in power. That was the historical context to what they did.
Yeah.
That they were thinking that we don't want that to happen again, so we're going to go take over the American embassy. But the problem is that the world was a different place, and everybody knows that all of the embassies all around the world for every country is they're going to spy. That's just what they do. And the thing is that they didn't understand that it was a different world now. That the 1950s and the 1980s were a completely different world, and the balances of power were different at the time. And those things don't happen anymore.
No, I see. Yes, but at the same time, I mean, what a black eye that was for America and the British, because champions of democracy, and then they go into cahoots together to overthrow a democratically elected leader in Iran, and we've never had another one since. And it was all about the oil, which is
Right.
pretty
Exactly.
pretty sad. Um, Now, when you had come to the States with your sister and your mom, and the private eye said, just don't bother looking for him. You're not going to find him. Did any of you go back, or did you all stay in the United States?
No, we all went back, and we all went back to Iran because my mom tried to stay, and because my dad never registered the marriage with the American embassy. So, and she had to basically, the option they gave her is to leave the kids here and you go back. And my mom was never going to have any of that. And so she took us back. And at the time, it was right before the Iranian Revolution. Iran was a modern country. It was a calm place. My mom already had a job as a teacher in Iran. So she was like, why do I want to stay here? And basically, the only job that she would qualify for is to be a maid or a house cleaner or something like that. And she was a very proud woman. She was highly educated, and she wasn't going to stay here to do that. So she took us back, and we went back to Iran.
Yes. Okay. So how did you come to America then, permanently?
So it's a long story. So after the revolution in Iran, I became a rebel against the Islamic government because they took away a lot of the freedoms. It was really tumultuous time in Iran, and all of the things that were going on, a lot of the freedoms that we had overnight were gone. Parties were illegal. Boys and girls couldn't walk with each other in the streets anymore. Music became illegal. I mean, it became a very, very oppressive place. And
Mm.
my way of fighting with it was to join an anti-government. At the time, there were like 10 different anti-government groups working to overthrow the Iranian government in Iran. And I joined one of those
Wow.
anti-government groups and started started to fight against the government. And actually, like with cocktail Molotov bombs and riding motorcycles in the street and throwing cocktail Molotov bombs at the Revolutionary Guard cars and all of that. And at a certain point, they found out who I was. A lot of my friends got their houses got raided, they got executed, they got tortured, and I overnight somebody came to our door, a friend of mine that his uncle was connected to the government and said, "You need to leave. You need to leave now, like tonight, because if you don't, they're coming after you and they have an execution of you." So
Yeah.
I I had to run with help of my uncle. He knew somebody that knew somebody. And I traveled to the Turkish border between Iran, where the Kurds live, and traveled there and on my hands and knees, crawled across the border between Iran and Turkey and turned myself into the Turkish police and basically told them I'm American because I already had American passport, but I didn't have it with me, and turned myself in. And they said I need to see somebody from the American embassy, and they sent somebody there. And after about a month, the American embassy validated that I'm American, and they gave me my passport. And at the Turkish holding cell, they gave me my passport and said, "Hey, here's your passport. You have 30 days to get out of Turkey because you can stay here for 30 days with no visa, and then you have to leave Turkey." I said, "Where am I going to go?" They said, "Well, that's not our problem. That's your problem to figure out."
Wow. And then you were able to get status in the United States.
Well, I was American citizen just because
And
of
that
the
was
fact that I was
recognized. Yeah, and you
right.
had
It
your
was recognized.
passport.
Right.
There you go. So, yeah, I had a neighbor, an Iranian neighbor named Amir, who he supported the Ayatollah Khomeini because he said we thought he was going to he talked of freedom and all that. And then when he got there, what ended up happening is his father, who had prospered under the Shah of Iran, was killed, and he ended up running. His son Amir ran
Hmm.
and was able to come to the United States. He's a successful businessman in the United States now. But carried a lot of guilt with him because he supported a regime that ended up killing his father. So it was a very, very tough time, as you well know,
Yeah.
firsthand. So you come to the United States. How old were you when that all happened? When you
I
came
was
ashore?
19.
19
I
years
was
old.
19 years old. It took me about 9 months to almost a year to get to United States, actually, because I had no money. And I made a friend in Turkey. He was an Iranian guy. I made a friend with him, and he was driving trucks across Europe. And I worked for him, basically loading up the trucks and unloading the trucks across Europe. And that gave me time to basically save up some money to buy a plane ticket. That was my next golden thing that I was looking for. First was the passport. Second was the plane ticket to the United States. And I landed in Detroit, out of all places. And everybody asked me why Detroit. I said, well, the research that I done is that Detroit was heart of the car manufacturing. So I thought it would be easier to find a job there.
Hmm.
So I landed in Detroit with $50 in my pocket and didn't know soul and barely spoke English. So I had to learn English and I had to basically figure it out. And I got a job at Wendy's working flipping hamburgers in the back. They wouldn't let me to be in the front because my English wasn't good. And I was during that time, it took me about almost another year to kind of figure everything out in America. Like I had no idea what credit cards were. I had no idea I needed a social security card to work in America. I didn't know any completely new culture, new environment, different customs, different way of interacting with people. So I had to learn all of that. And at that time, across the street from the Wendy's, there was a recruiting station, and this army sergeant used to come in there and eat lunch every day. And over time, we became friends and talked a lot. And he said, "Hey, you don't have anything here. Why don't you join the army? We give you 3 meals a day, a nice place to sleep." I'm like, "Sign me up." So that's how I ended up in the army.
And how long were you in the Army for?
11 years.
11 years. Okay, so you didn't just do the basic. But you didn't do career either. Why 11 years? I mean, what made you decide, okay, I'm going to leave the Army? I mean, you didn't, what's the minimum sign up on the Army? I don't even know. Is it
4
4 years?
years.
4 years.
4 years.
Okay,
4
so
years.
you did more than the minimum, but you didn't make a full career out of it. So why 11 years? How did you come about deciding I'm going to leave the Army now?
So I'm an overachiever. I'll admit that. And so when I joined the army, I didn't qualify for anything except infantry, because there's an ASVAB test that you have to take when you join the army, and based on the score that you get on that test, it basically tells you what job you can get in the army and what options you have.
So
The
you were
problem that
infantry, which is basically the most dangerous job, right?
right, but at the time when I took the test, I maxed out the physics, the math, all of that. So the English part, I completely sucked at it.
Mm.
Easiest way to say it. So, and that was a high part of the total score. And so they said your English is not good enough. The only job you qualify for is infantry, and that's where we sending you. So I went in the army, joined the infantry, and they got and I did pretty well during basic training, during the AIT, which is the advanced training part of it, and they offered me airborne school. So I said, okay. So I went to airborne school. Came back, and during the airborne school, they were recruiting um, for Ranger School. So I signed up for that too. So I went through Ranger School, and I did pretty well there.
So
Got
special
assigned.
forces, you an Army Ranger, that's
No, that's
special for.
different. That's
Oh, it is
different.
different.
Yeah,
Okay, I thought
it
that
is
was the
different.
Army's brand of it. Okay.
No, there's the Rangers, and then once I got assigned to 82nd Airborne in Fort Bragg in North Carolina, I was there for a while, and then opportunity came up to sign up for Special Forces, so I did that too. I signed up for that, and so it was just a progression of things happening one after the other. So I got involved in the whole Special Operations Command and that whole apparatus and that whole process. That's what took me to Sierra Leone, took me to Rwanda during genocide, during the first Gulf War, and that was the irony because when I was in Iran, I actually got conscripted for about 7, 8 months, and I fought on the front lines in the war between Iran and Iraq until I until my friends got me out of there. And once I came back, and that was before I left Iran. But it was the irony of the special first Gulf War was that we were liberating Kuwait from Iraq. So I was fighting with the same enemy, basically from a different angle with a different
Mm,
army.
yeah.
And so it was kind of ironic on that part of it. And
Yeah.
then during
Uh-huh.
this whole 11 years, I was in different places until the last part where I was in Bosnia, and that's where I got injured. I took some bullets. I was technically dead for 10 minutes. And after I got
Wow.
revived and all of that, they told me I couldn't be on a team anymore. I couldn't jump out of an airplane anymore. And I had to sit behind the desk. And I went through a training course and became a instructor at the psychological operations group to teach basically psychological operations. And that's usually where special operators can't work anymore. That's where they put them in different teaching this job. And at that time, I was just not in a very good place. And a job offer came from a friend of
L-
mine that we worked
Let,
together on the same
let
team.
me hold you up for just 1 minute because you were technically dead for 10 minutes after taking some bullets. Did you have an out-of-body experience? Do you recall any
Uh,
out-of-body experience?
I wouldn't call it an out of body. I didn't see any bright lights. I didn't have any of those things. All I remember is I put my hand behind my leg, brought my hand up, and I saw blood, and I went face down, and I don't remember anything until I woke up in the hospital
Wow.
in Ramstein, Germany. Uh, and
Gotcha.
so
So your
that
friend
was the
then,
reason I left the army.
okay. And then your friend had approached you about a job opportunity?
Yeah, he did, and he said he was working at a as a project manager in Saudi Arabia with Riyadh Bank. And he said, hey, I got this job. I need a project manager to come and run this project. I know you can run a team. I'm like, what the hell is a project manager? I had no idea what that job was. And I said, I have no IT background whatsoever. And he said, don't worry about any of that. I just need somebody to lead this team that we got here. And I need you to come and work with me there. So he said, I know you're bored in the army. Come and work with me. So I did.
Now you speak Farsi, no doubt. Do
Yes.
you also speak Arabic?
Yes, I do. I
Oh,
speak
so you're
Arabic as well.
trilingual. Is it so English, Farsi, and Arabic? Any other languages you speak?
No, that's it. Just the
Okay.
three.
Okay. So interesting. So you were able to fit right in Saudi Arabia because you speak Arabic
Right.
to do
And
that
I knew
project
all the
management.
costumes and all of that
Hmm.
stuff as well. So it was a natural fit for me to have conversations with them. I understood their culture. I understood how its cultures are pretty close between Persians and Arabs. The cultures are pretty close, especially from the religious perspective. I grew up in Iran, so knew all of the what to do and not to do type of things there.
Yes. Yes. So you eventually went into technology, though. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes.
And what line of technology were you doing? Semiconductors, software,
Mostly
telecom?
software.
Oh, is
Mostly
that right?
software.
Writing
Yeah.
software. Did you start your own company or were you part of a company
No, I
with
worked
a?
for IBM for actually three times on writing software and in different phases. And then I got into enterprise resource management applications and building software for manufacturing companies and all of that stuff. And then I got really involved into writing code and all of that. I kind of taught myself to write code and kind of progressed through the ranks and now I'm a senior vice president for an AI company.
Oh, you are. Okay. Can you
Yes.
say with the AI company or
Yeah, it's called
not?
soft. Yeah, it's called SoftServe. It's we're kind of the ghostwriters for all of the big companies like Google, Amazon, OpenAI. We kind of write software for them.
In the AI, this particular company produces uh, AI algorithms that can write software, or is that not the purpose of it? Because like I
Well,
think
that's
at Google
one.
they say like half the software Google writes these days is done by AI rather than human beings.
Right. Yeah. That's one uh, piece of AI, but AI is much bigger than that. So now I teach AI at UCLA as well. And the AI world is you have the Gen AI, which is everybody's familiar with like ChatGPT and Gemini, Google Gemini, and all of that. Then you have
Hmm.
your agentic AI, which is actually AI that does things, not just write code, but it actually runs transactions inside of a system, does accounting or things like that, that you basically give it certain parameters and all of that, and it kind of does what a human would do in an accounting software, like close the book, for example, at the end of the month.
Right,
It would
right.
actually do that, do those transactions, put journal entries into a general ledger and those types of things.
Did you use AI at all to write your book? Did
No.
you use Claude or you didn't use Claude or ChatGPT or Perplexity? Okay, you this was all you. That's
This
good.
is, oh yeah, it's all me. And I actually had a writing coach. I mean, I gave him credit in the preface of the book. His name is Ken Scott. He's a five-time London Times bestseller because English is not my first language. And I wanted somebody that is an expert in this. So he helped me a lot. I would write a chapter, I would send it to him. He would tell me, okay, you need to fix this, you need to fix that. The artist doesn't work over here, you need to change this. So that's what basically I did, working with him for about a year and a half to write the book.
Interesting. Now, you're in Los Angeles now, and my understanding from my friend Amir, who I had mentioned to you earlier, is there's so many Iranians who are in Los Angeles that they call it Tehrangeles, a
Yes,
combination of Tehran and Los Angeles.
right.
So yeah, so it is okay, and there's quite a community there, I guess, that works that informally works in communicating with people in Iran and trying to get the government basically out of power and put something else in its place. I mean, people are very,
That's correct.
very
Yeah.
frustrated with, the
Yeah,
government that they've
actually,
got
I
right
live in
now.
Dallas.
Oh,
Currently,
Dallas. Okay.
I'm
But you
living in
teach at
Dallas.
UCLA, you said,
Yeah,
or
I
is
do
that
online. Online.
okay?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So, at what point did you decide that you wanted to write a book about piece of autofiction about your experiences?
The book was really therapy for me more than anything else. I never intend to be a writer. And it wasn't that I was going to write a great novel that is going to win prizes and things like that. That wasn't the intention. The intention is basically to write my experiences and to tell the story of what happened from from a different perspective, the human perspective of that, because you can read all of these historical events in history books and you can see that. But I wanted to give a perspective of people that actually lived through it and what they saw there. Like there's a scene in the book about the American embassy takeover, and which was real. It was my mom during the revolution. She wanted to get out of Iran, so she had an appointment at the U.S. embassy to get her visa. And the appointment happened to be the same day that they stormed the embassy and took over the embassy, and we were in front of the embassy when that happened,
Amazing.
and all
Amazing.
of that. So it was a different perspective because people saw the news and everything, and you can watch the news clips from the time, but being there and seeing it gives you a different perspective. Also, I focused a lot in the book on the human side, on the emotional side of things. And it's not a hero story by any means. It's the story is about the emotions when you see tragedy. It's about resilience. It's about hope during your darkest hours. And the
And
way I
search for
kind of want
purpose.
it is
Search
search
for
for
purpose as
purpose.
well.
I search for identity. For me, in my case, it was searching for identity because growing up in Iran with an American father and an Iranian mother, I lived in a dual world, in a dual identity world. In Iran, I was considered a foreigner. In the US, I'm considered a foreigner. So it's a dual identity that you have to kind of live. And at the same time, understanding that no matter what the world throws at you, it's your responses that defines the outcome. And
Hmm.
it's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to what's happening to you that makes the change. I like to think I'm a very successful guy in here, and I work with my therapist. I'm still working with my therapist through all the trauma and all of that stuff. But the thing about it is, it's the story is about hope. It's about understanding the human nature and how resilient we can be, even in our darkest days. That's one part of it. Second part of it is that the story is dedicated to the people that I have lost along the way. There was a number of people that I lost in this process at very young ages. They died at very young ages, and I wanted their memory to live on. I didn't want them to be forgotten.
I see. Okay. So, when you decided to write it, though, how did you end up? You hired a coach, so you started to pursue this. You didn't hire the coach strictly for your therapeutic purposes. I take it you were at some point you decided I'd like to get this published. Is that right?
Yes. So what I did was is actually I started writing the book after I was probably into the 5, 6 chapters, and I realized War and Peace may be bigger. And that's when I said, okay, I'm going to need a professional person to help me write this book. It was a disaster. I
You
think
know,
that
Nick, you got a little choppy along the way there. So, did you say that you got 5 or 6 chapters into it and had blown up into a lot of text? And
yes,
it wasn't War
yeah.
and Peace, you said, but it was
I
it
said it
was
was going
start
to
it
be
was heading
Signs
that
of War.
direction. Yeah. At that rate, you would have had a War and Peace on your hands, at least in
Exactly.
terms of volume.
Right.
Okay, so then you did end up finding. It sounds like you found a top flight coach.
I did. And I did a lot of research. I have a few friends in the publishing business and all of that. And I asked for the top coach that I can get to write this book because I wanted the story to have heart in it. I wanted to have a soul. I didn't want it to be just a series of events that's going on. So I wanted a heart and soul into it. So I found a coach that really understood. So one of his books, Do the Birds Sing in Hell. And when I read that book, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing the way he wrote that book. A little controversial book, but it was about a Holocaust survivor and his love for this German woman and how he survived the Holocaust through this whole process. And it was a really touching story. Um, that it was another autofiction, basically, that he wrote. So I really loved his style. So that's why I asked him if he would help me. And it took me a while to get him to say yes. He lives in Spain, and a couple of trips to Spain and conversations with him, he finally got convinced. He said, "Okay, I'll help you write the book."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, and obviously successfully. So you got it published, and the now just based on what you've told me so far, it sounds like this may be a one and done for you, or are you working on something new?
So when I finished the first book, I was like, okay, I didn't tell the whole story because, again, it would have been too big for one book. So it stops at the point that the character, which is Ricardo, leaves the army. That's the end of the story at that point. But there's a lot more to tell. So I'm working on the second one. And then there's going to be a prequel to the book as well. The prequel is actually the story of my dad, because he spent all his life in the CIA. And he had some amazing stories, and he passed away a couple of years ago. But I spent almost a month with him before he passed away and recorded all of his adventures and stories to write it after he passes away because a lot of it is classified. So I have to write it as fiction. And so that's going to be the third book.
So he obviously was suffering from a terminal disease. He knew the end was coming.
Yes.
You took the opportunity to go ahead and record his life for the prequel. Interesting. So how did he reached out to you 35 years later after he had left Iran and basically disappeared on you and your family? How did he find you?
He just called me. And he
So
knew
he knew
exactly.
he was tracking the whole time. He was probably keeping a finger on the pulse of you and your mom and your sister. It sounds like then.
Yeah, he actually tracked me throughout my whole army career. And he told me about missions that I went on, that he actually directed those missions, and I had no idea that he was directing them. And
Amazing.
because special operations has a very close-knit relationship with the CIA, so a lot of the missions, they are joint and they work together on a lot of the things. So he was he was pretty high up in the CIA, and he directed a lot of the things, and he knew exactly where I was. He had my phone number the whole time. And one day after he discovered that he was terminal, to call me and say, "Hey, son, I'm still here. I'm watching." And the year and a half that I interacted with him before he passed away, it was a very interesting because like I said, my sister is very bitter about it, but I'm, I completely get him. I completely understand him. I understand his mind frame. I understood how he thought. I understood why he did what he did. And the thing I trying to tell in his book, in that story, is that we need people like him in this world, even though he might sound really hard. But in order to preserve what we have in a democracy in this world, we need people like him to do the things that he did.
Hmm. Now, he was in Vegas when you reconnected with him, I think you said. What was he
Yeah.
doing in Vegas? Was he still working for the CIA?
No, he retired. He was in his 80s, and he retired, and he was basically just had a really small condo, one bedroom condo that he lived by himself with his dog, and very loner, little bit of a paranoid person to a certain extent. Like whenever I went to see him, I had to call him ahead of time that I'm coming, like about a couple of weeks before. And then when I got there, I had to call him that I'm going to be at his door. And then when I got to his door, I had to call him for him to unlock the 10 deadbolts that he had on the door to let me in.
Wow. Okay. So he was still concerned about retribution against
Yeah,
himself, that
yeah.
that people would know who he was and so on. Okay. So the next book that you're writing then is an extension of the story you started with, The Shadows of Tehran, and then you
Right.
get to the prequel after that.
After that, yes.
How far along are you? Do you have a title already for your sequel?
No, no title yet. I'm still working with the same post on writing it.
Hmm.
We're about a quarter of a way through. These days, my job is taking a lot of my time, so I don't get to spend as much time as I like on the book. But we're hoping sometime next year, by the end of next year or early 2027.
Now, you have an agent, Nick?
I don't. I actually work with a number of agents, not a single one. I'm working with a couple of agents right now, and because there's a script that we're writing as well.
That's where I
To
was
base,
going. I was going
yeah,
in that direction because I thought this sounds like a movie potentially. And,
yeah.
certainly an agent would see the possibilities. So you are working with some people who, and you said there's already been a script drafted?
A script drafted, yes, I drafted, and I'm not writing the script. I'm actually going to be working with a script writer because of the first book was really successful. So they wanting to basically turn it into a different story. So the script writer is going to be doing the work on the script part of it. But we'll
So,
see.
so
There's no
Shadows of
guarantees
Tehran.
that business.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. I mean, it's
Mhm.
so hard to get. I used to be friends with. He died, unfortunately, but he's quite a bit older than me. But he was a scriptwriter in LA, and a lot of times the scripts would get optioned, and it was good money. But he was really frustrated because most of the time they never got made. It's a
Right.
very tough business. But this does sound like it's got a lot of intrigue. So I wish you luck on that, and I can see why an agent would be pursuing it for sure. Isn't it? I believe kind of standard is 15% for the agent on book sales, but 20% on movies, I think,
A movie.
TV
Right.
movies,
Yeah.
and yeah. So it's a bigger commission on that. So of course they're going to be interested. Tell us about your writing regimen, Nick, if you really have one, because I know you're saying you're busy with work, you're not able to spend as much time writing as you would like. But do you have a process? Do you get up early in the morning to do it before you start your day job, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's usually on the weekends more than anything else that I
Mm.
spend time on the writing part. That's if I'm not traveling somewhere. I do a lot of traveling, international travel. Actually, I'm in the airport today, sitting in a lounge in the airport. But
Okay, all right.
yeah,
I
so
can I can hear some of the noises around just bare a little bit.
yeah, exactly. So it's I get up usually on Saturday or and a Sunday early in the morning and start the writing process. Writing Shadows of Tehran was a little difficult because it's very personal and I had to walk away a lot of times. And one of the things that everybody asks me is why did you write it as autofiction? One of the reasons I wrote it not a memoir, and one of the reasons I wrote it as an autofiction is because when you come from trauma and when you come from different people that never asked to be in a book, I wanted to make sure I can make changes to it and preserve the dignity of a lot of people, change a lot of time and places because a lot of military missions are in there that I can't talk about. And so I have to change a lot of a little bit of the scenery and things like that in it. But at the same time, it's when I talk about the character, I had to basically separate myself from the character. And writing it as autofiction gave me that freedom to separate myself and not to have to justify. Because one of the things, because I started this as a memoir, and then it was the writing coach that told me, he said, have you thought about autofiction? And he kind of walked me through it. And it made a lot of sense to me because when you write as an autofiction, I separate the character from myself. I don't have to justify why he did what he did, good or bad. And I'm just telling the story. I'm just a storyteller.
Hmm.
And the reason for that being, like I mentioned before, this is not a hero story. The character makes a lot of mistakes in the whole process, and the process helped me admit to those mistakes and talk about them without having to justify why.
Nick, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought maybe I had lost you for just a second. The connection is just a little bit choppy here along the way. So the so next year you're figuring you'll have it done in 2020, well, in 2026.
Right.
You're expecting to have it done. And then 2027, once this one's done, it sounds like you'll really get right to work on the prequel at that point.
On the prequel, and that one is going to be a completely different type of a story, because that one is not about me anymore. It's about my dad. I'm going to play a role in it because I'm his son, but it's really from his early childhood and his upbringing, to a dad that was actually a Nazi supporter, and it's a story. It's a story. That's all I can say about it.
I can imagine. This whole thing really sounds amazing. I didn't realize how the very thick plot you're talking about here. So you're writing on weekends. Is the process? I mean, are you basically devote several hours on the weekend to just you're writing from memory, really, because
Right.
you've lived it. You're writing from memory. Where's the dividing line between the autobiography and the fiction? Where does fiction come into play?
The fiction part is really names and places more than anything else. It's the characters are all true in the book. Every
Under
single
different names
character
or
under different names.
yeah.
Yeah. The characters are all true. All the characters actually did what it says in the book, lived the life. They're real people. And in the preference of the book, I talk about it, that these are real people that I'm talking about. And a lot of them, I wanted their memories to carry on because there's a lot of violence in the book. There's a lot of death in the book just because of the circumstances and all of that. So it's a I really had to balance that. I didn't want it to be totally fictionalized. I wanted to tell a story, but tell the truth basically. And that's really the key part of this, is that I didn't want to separate the truth from it, and I didn't want to just to make up stories into it. It's basically protecting people of where they were and what they did at the time.
But it does sound like 90% memoir and more like only 10% fiction. You said,
Yes.
names, places, those sorts of things you changed, but it's largely a nonfiction book written in a novelistic form.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. And the book has been successful. You say that it did well, and
It did well.
obviously, so now you got people saying, we need another one. You got to feed the machine, so let's do another one. And you have that story, and you got two more stories to tell at least. After which, if that all works well, then you'll probably have an idea for a fourth book. So you're working with a couple different agents. How does that work? Because you have an agent for the book, I take it, but
Right.
is you have a separate agent for
For the
movies
movie,
/
movie
television?
slash.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
doesn't the book agent, I don't know how much you can talk about this, Nick, but I would think the book agent would say, well, wait a minute, I'm your agent and there's good money to be made there and I want to make the money. We don't need a different agent to do that.
Well, they're kind of working together on it. This is why I said I
Okay.
have a couple there. They kind of work together on it because one is specialized in books and the other one is specialized in movies and TV series and those types of things. So, and they kind of work together on these types of things. This is becoming very normal in the today's online demand broadcast and all of that. Is that you need there's in the old days, it was the movie studios and the production companies that they would kind of approach with these things. Now there's so many of them. It's Netflix, it's Hulu, it's Apple. They're all doing their own original things. So you got to know that environment, and you got to know how to navigate that environment, which is a little bit different. And my book agent, he was really good about it. And he was like, this is not my specialty. This is not what I do. And he actually introduced me to the other agents.
I see. Okay. So you have collaborators there. Well, it sounds very promising. So for our listeners, again, the name of Nick's book is called Shadows of Tehran. It's available everywhere, just like all books are these days. And you've got the sequel coming out, and then eventually the prequel. The other thing for our listeners, if you look in the episode notes, there is the URL to Nick Berg's website where you can learn more about Nick and the work he does, including his charities. Talk just a little about the charities that you support or promote, Nick.
Sure. I'm really big in animals, and I'm really big on supporting the veterans. I live the veteran life. I know what that transition feels like. I know coming out of the military and then going into the civilian world, sometimes it's very hard and difficult. The other side of it is that there's a lot of military veterans that are coming out with wounds that nobody can see. And it's not that you missing an arm or a leg or limping or things like that. Those are easy to identify, but it's all in the emotional wound. It's what they saw during that time, especially my time after the military, working with Iraq veterans, working with the Afghanistan veterans and all of that. They need a lot of help. And as a
lot
nation,
of post-traumatic stress disorder, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Nowadays, some of them are using psychedelics now to work with veterans, stuff like ketamine and other psychedelics, and they've been having a lot of success when nothing else is working. Because, I mean, suicide's an epidemic among veterans. There's that as well. I mean, obviously that's the psychological horror of a post-war horror that they live with, to the point where they can't deal with it anymore. It's very sad, but it's war is hell,
and
as
a
they
lot
say.
of them, and a lot of them have survivor's guilt. Why did I survive and the other guy did it? So that there's a lot of that in the world right now, and so my charities are focused on those. It focused on animals, which is the dogs of war and the
Oh, the animals. You're breaking up, Nick, so I'm going to just jump in here. The animals that you're dealing with, these are the animals that the military uses, like the bomb sniffing dogs and all that.
Right.
And dogs are often well, when they went after Osama bin Laden, the dogs were the first one in, because according to what I've heard, because a couple reasons. One, that they'd be able to detect if there was explosives set up, and secondly, let's face it, we'll sacrifice an animal before a soldier on that kind of, just busting into a place. So fortunately, the dog or dogs during that raid survived. There wasn't an explosion, but it worked out okay.
Right.
So there's a lot of military. It's mostly dogs, right, or entirely dogs?
No, it's mostly dog. Yeah, it's mostly dogs, and the dogs are after the military because they retire at a certain age, and they need support as much as the veterans do, and finding homes for them and training them to live a civilian life for the rest of their whatever life they have left on there as well.
Well, nowadays, with drones and robots, some of that work has shifted over to drones and robots, correct?
It has, yes, it has. And then the other side of it is the dogs that get trained to work with veterans, the service dogs, basically. They're service dogs that are trained to look for certain things. So I work with some of those organizations as well around that. Other charities that I support is around the Ukraine war, and company that I work for is a Ukrainian company, and around their support for the Ukraine war, because they're truly giving their life to defend all of our democracies, and that's how I kind of see it.
Yeah.
Um,
It's amazing what
so
they've been able to do against. I mean, you talk about a David versus Goliath battle, and they have been amazing. They've had a
right,
lot of help, but they've been very inventive as well. In fact, one of the things that I read about in The Economist magazine was that Ukraine could end up being practically a weapons factory for all of Europe because they've got these drones that they've been able, sea drones and air drones that they have developed and learned how to mass produce. I mean, that's the future of warfare. It's
right.
the present and future.
Yeah, absolutely. I have been to Ukraine probably 6 times now in the last 2 years, and working with the company that I recognize that we have been able to collect millions of dollars. Company that I work for is a private company, so the owners are big supporters. And we were able to donate 75 ambulances, fully equipped ambulances to the Ukraine military to save lives, and even in the cities to save lives. That's where
That's
we're focused on. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Fantastic. Again, Nick Berg is the author. Shadows of Tehran is the book. His website, the URL's in the episode notes, but it's P as in Peter, N as in Nick, BERG.com, pnberg.com. You can learn more about him there. Nick, you have an amazing story that you've told, and I really appreciate you coming on the program and giving us some insights here.
Really, really appreciate your time on this.